and the Jade, or Jade 2, being an AI software system. Okay, it's basically the Jade 2 system is an AI quantum computing technology that has the ability to use vast amounts of data that's being collected on the human domain, that's us, to generate a human terrain system, which they talk about in that PDF. Okay, in geographic locations, in order to identify, eliminate targets, insurgents, rebels, or whatever labels that can be flagged as targets on a global information grid in a network-centric warfare environment. Well, with respect to the Jade 2 exercise, it's kind of being hyped and pumped up out there as an invasion or an occupation of a section of America. At the very least, it's the largest type of RMT ever conducted on American soil, anywhere, ever. So to that aspect of it, I believe the concerns are real. However, I think there is another aspect to this program that's running in the background, this exercise, I should say, that's running in the background that not too many people are aware of, and that is probably by design. Well, in short, the software that they've developed, this Jade 2, it's technology that will not be battles directed by generals and military commanders, but by a computer. All right? The Jade 2 system is a network-centric, software-based AI program at the helm. This isn't actually my conclusion. I mean, everything that I'm going to be discussing with you here today is in the documents. And before we get into some of the specifics that this system is able to do and will be doing, I just want to say that the information that I had found on the net that we will be discussing has been highly sanitized.
Wow.
I believe. It's been, because there's things that are not there that should be there when you're talking about a technical system like this that just, they weren't available in the papers. All right, well, why don't we start talking about what the Jade 2 system is capable of. This system uses vast sums of information collected on individuals, groups, population-centric regions, and large geographic areas and or countries. It then dumps all that information into a module called an HTA, which is a human terrain analysis tool, which then analyzes the data to develop an HTS, or human terrain system. Once the human terrain system is established, it determines, and this is going to start to get really hairy, okay? It determines behavioral parameters for norms of individuals, groups, population-centric areas, etc. The establishment of these formulated parameters is known as the human domain, which we've all been hearing about out there in the media and on the blogospheres and everything. It can then identify, extract, or eliminate perceived threats or targets based on deviations from these norms.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. Jade can also examine the human terrain system over time with the use of thousands of remote sensors, both audio and visual, as well as real-time communication monitoring and other types of HTA tools to change or rewrite its program parameters in a particular human domain. This new information or program template, as well as any other previous program scenarios, is then stored in its Prodigy module, which is actually the battle planning suggestion module, and it can be retrieved at any time for any intended purpose. Now, as this is a knowledge-based or data-driven, mixed initiative, or military/civilian application, it's able to generate complex deployment and battle plans in seconds versus hours, days, or weeks. It can create holographic battlefield simulations on the fly. The deployment or battle planning with this system starts with the receipt of a mission statement, which is then run through a CBR, or case-based reasoning module, to produce an ACOA, or an adaptive course of action. The word adaptive is key. What's it adaptive to? It adapts itself to the changing human domain, us. It adapts its plans based on changing terrain of human activity. What are some of the elements that are classified as human activity? Okay, your communications, your financial transactions, your travel patterns, habits, behavioral patterns, emotions. Yes, this system can read and measure human emotion, and social media content. Okay, the one paper goes on to say that activity can change rapidly in a crisis event or a warfare scenario, and it's able to change or rewrite its own COA or course of action on the fly. The system is aware. It has total awareness, even in a rapidly changing environment. From what I can ascertain, there is no central data input point. What I've been able to glean from all these papers in that is that these huge data dump centers, like the one in Blufftail and many, many other ones, are connected into this global information grid. So if you want to look at it from that perspective, the global information grid would be the central point on the network system, okay? Now, format, which is the force management module for this system, was developed by the MITRE Corporation, and it's used to support knowledge acquisition. Okay, that's data collection. That's what the NSA is performing on everyone, not just identified threats, but everyone. Why? Because the government now perceives the American people, I believe, as its greatest threat, and it will use a computer-driven military to clamp us down. Patriots will be classified as terrorists, and the true terrorists, the U.S. puppet government we have out there, who receives its directives and agendas from the ruling elite, they'll be deemed patriots to be protected at all costs.
Makes sense.
Okay, the third module in this system is known as PARCA. It's able to handle extremely complex structured queries against large knowledge bases or large databases, data dumps. Have you ever wondered why, or has anybody ever asked the question, why the NSA is telling everyone they're only collecting metadata or meta tags?
I don't even fully understand what those things are. But look, if you'll define them and then ask that question again, it'll be easier for us to track with you.
Okay, meta tags or metadata contain virtually no information or data in and of themselves. Meta tags or metadata only have value if they're indexed to a much larger information source or file in these immense databases. So, this is, in my humble opinion, this is just another example of deception through misdirection. Oh, we're just collecting, your phone number as you're passing by, and we're not keeping any of your emails or your text messages or anything like that. Well, if you look at how this system is structured, that's the critical data the system needs. It can't work off meta tags and metadata. I mean, they're virtually empty data until they're indexed to something or something is indexed to them. Does that?
Good Lord. Go ahead. Keep going. I'm with you.
Okay. Jade 2 is, and hold on to your seat for this one, it's a self-reactive, self-adapted, self-modeling program for predictive force deployment. In other words, it can predict conflicts before they occur and react in a preemptive manner. Okay. It only it thinks in the present, but it can predict future events or human activity. And these conflicts are not confined to a warfare scenario either. Excuse me. The predict and preempt capabilities can also be applied to scenarios of social unrest. And that's not just my opinion. That's stated right in the reports and the papers on this software.
Good grief. Okay.
So let's look at some of the other key functionality or capabilities of this system. And right now we're just talking about the Jade system because that's what everybody's concerned about right now, Jade Helm. It can make high-level trade determinations. It makes decisions regarding casualties and targets in line with the overall mission objective. Okay? It is a total command. It has total command and control in an information-intensive society. Now, from a military standpoint, the term command is more or less a legal or a behavioral standard of actions performed or not performed by military officers to which they can later be held accountable. The Jade system displaces that standard from individual commanders and places it on itself. Total command and control of all information over land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace is how they will master the human domain. It says that in the PDF slides. It says that in the software papers. Okay? It can perform machine interpretation of commander's intent. Think about that for a minute. You know, that's kind of, let me try and put this in perspective. Okay, I want to get back to the machine interpretation of commander's intent.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like, all right, I pull up to my house, I pull in the driveway. My intent is to go in the house and sit, watch TV. Now, am I going to enter the house by smashing my truck through an exterior wall, or am I going to enter the house by getting a key off my keychain and unlocking the door? I mean, that, to me, that is a scary aspect. Machine interpretation of commander's intent.
I wonder if that's to eliminate the possibility of any, shall we say, freelancing out there, or overriding some orders or something like that.
I don't know. It could be.
Okay.
It could be, but I don't know. I'm not sure. This, like I said before, the system sits on a global information grid, which is how can I explain this? It's a flexible, scalable, and a dynamic architecture in order to support multilateral civilian and military operations. This global information grid is going to be an important aspect as we go through this. Okay? Oh, here's another subheading in one of the papers, and it was entitled The Process of Sense-Making in Complex Human Endeavors. Quote, this approach uses a set of cognitive constructs that translates tacit knowledge to the focal knowing of the objective world. End quote. How are they accomplishing this? They're mapping your mind. That's how they're doing it. And they are creating these maps with all of the information that's being collected on everyone regarding every aspect of their life. Macrocognition. This is the process the system uses to dissect the human behavioral process. It's a cognitive and adaptive learning function, and I'm sorry, I'm stepping all over myself here.
It's completely okay. Gives me time to catch up.
Okay. Oh, I'm embarrassed. Okay, the macrocognition component of the system, like I mentioned before, is a process of dissecting the human behavioral process. Okay, it's cognitive and adaptive learning capabilities. enables it to predict intent. Now, we're not talking on the military side here. We're talking on either the enemy or civilian side, whichever way you want to look at it. So it can predict intent of an adversary or target, as well as predict a range of potential behaviors of those targets. And it does this instantaneously. This doesn't require a bunch of military commanders sitting around a table, going back and forth. Well, how should we handle this? I don't know. I think we should do it this way. The machine's making the system's making the decisions for them. Oh, here's another statement that was made in the paper entitled The Tuesday Presentation to Justify the Rollout of Jade 2. And it says, quote, "For a joint commander to define an instruction set to a civilian or military joint force mission to transform a failing state to an agreed upon non-failing end state is a problem," end quote. Okay, and this section goes on to say that, rapidly changing dynamics presents a cognitively difficult task for commanders and practitioners. And the system will do that too. I mean, when you look at it as it is not the be-all and the end-all, this is just a sub-layer, a layer on top of a much larger system that's already in place. Okay? Jade 2 can reconfigure its own network topography to optimize communication and data transfers. In one of my other reports, I talked about BBN Technologies' use of bandwidth extenders on the cellular and wireless architecture networks. Well, this is what they're referring to. An example of this might look like, you're driving down the road, all of a sudden you lost cell phone service in a particular area or for a particular time, when in actuality, your bandwidth's been reallocated to the system. Because everything, absolutely everything, communications, everything else is tied into that global information grid.
Oh, man.
All right. Another command and control problem that these concept papers, they're not even concept papers because the software is being used now. Okay. Another command and control problem this system is designed to handle is the fact that the enemy has always been able to adapt to a rapidly changing environment to hide itself from exposure. In order to combat this problem, okay, the kill chain had to be compressed from hours to seconds. The system removes the administrative delay in the kill chain. It has no moral compass, no empathy, or regrets. And it's intended to achieve dominance of cyberspace, cyber power, and cyber strategy. This capability will continue to evolve even though key technical, social, and information trends begin to stabilize.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
It'll capitalize on social engineering for offensive military and civilian operations. In other words, this is a technical approach to the tactics employed in Nazi Germany by the Stasi, the brown shirts, and the SS. This is just a technological version of those social engineering tactics they used then. It has a sophisticated decision support system for crowd control. And with the growing civil unrest, not only here in America, but around the world, this is going to be an integral aspect of Jade 2's deployment on the civilian population.
Okay.
Okay, now well, let me just say this and then move on to another section here. The hardware that this system's running on isn't your run-of-the-mill supercomputer, all right?
Your run-of-the-mill supercomputer.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's not a Cray. It's nothing like that. It's going to be running thousands of processors on a single chip. This is, without a doubt, the direction these command and control systems are moving toward. You just can't process the vast amounts of data being collected using conventional linear computing technology. you get to a diminishing point of return at some stage of the game here with these data dumps. Oh, this you're going to find interesting. It develops virtual models based on repetitive types of crimes that can predict future crimes that have not yet been committed by either individuals or groups in the COA or the civilian operation area, and then execute a course of action, a preemptive course of action. This is Minority Report's pre-crime technology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, we can sum up the J2 system this way. I guess it's a self-organizing, vision-capable, expectation-capable, recognition-capable, situationally aware, emotional, intelligent, goal-oriented system. The system thinks, plans, and executes. Okay, now when I was doing, if I can share this with you, when I was doing the research on all of this, I kept recalling this demonstration that was put on by these MIT software engineers in the beginning days of AI. So it was probably about 20, 25 years ago. And they created a CGI, computer-generated image of a lamp on a standalone computer. They assigned the CGI, the lamp, okay, certain information regarding the material it was made of, natural laws like gravity and balance, and their goal was using the AI model to teach it, or more specifically, to have it learn how to dance. I know that sounds crazy, but these are, MIT guys. So not much was happening during the first few hours. They were running the program. So they kind of left the lab, went out, got something for lunch, went back to their dorms. When they returned to the lab the next morning, the lamp, okay, was twisting and spinning around on the computer screen. The engineers, although they were absolutely delighted that their experiment worked, issued a dire warning about putting this type of AI technology out, or I should say unleashing this technology on a distributed network. That CGI lamp, okay, was able to learn and evolve in 24 hours what it would have taken humans 1,000 generations to accomplish. Jade Helm 15 exercise. What do I think is going on? I think this thing is, among other things, that it could be, is a giant psyop. Okay, and that's not to rule out the possibility of this whole exercise at some point going live. It's creating, through hype and hysteria and secrecy and anxiety, it's creating a range of emotional responses on the civilian side, as well as a force management planning response on the military side. Because as we've said over and over again, they're collecting data, all data, not some data, all data on everyone. Okay, the Jade Helm program, in my humble opinion, okay, is what we're seeing is a system rollout. Jade 2's been tested in limited areas in the past. And if I recall the papers, one of the papers I read indicated it was tested in Haiti during the earthquake, and I don't have, that paper in front of me right now, but I think it was also used during Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Sandy. And, I think this exercise is, like I said before, among other horrific possible intentions, it's a system rollout, okay? They're going to be running it through its paces, see how well it performs over a large geographic area with a dynamic human terrain. I mean, they're causing fear, okay? And if something goes sideways with this exercises, if people die or there's an extensive loss or damage to private property, they're going to offer up some soldier and some commanding officer for the chopping block, and we're never going to hear anything about any of these casualty losses were due to a programming error or a problem with its thinking and execution function.
That's good thinking, DJ. Yep.
And they're going to cover. They got their tracks covered already. I mean, this thing's been planned. I think they think they have their ducks all in a line. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember how we mentioned earlier, we briefly touched on the Global Information Grid?
Yes.
Or the GIG? Okay. Jade doesn't bode well for the people in what we know of it right now. But Jade 2 is part of a much larger command and control system that goes beyond military applications. It's called GEOINT. Let me spell that. It's a capital GEO, capital I, capital N, capital T. It's the Geospatial Intelligence Network.
Okay.
It's everything Jade 2 and more. It's global in scope and everything regarding communications, the internet, social media platforms, just about everything now. If something has the word smart in front of it, smart grids, smart meters, smart
Phone.
appliances. Yeah, smartphone.
Smart
right.
TV, smart whatever.
They're all plugged into that grid. All of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So what role then does GEOINT, or the Geospatial Intelligence Network, play in a bigger picture? And what I've been able to find is that GEOINT is a tool for the proponents of global government in order for them to cast a neural net over humanity. How are they going to do that? I mean, humanity is 7 billion people. So how do you control 7 billion people?
I'm going to take a stab at it by having them inhale nanoparticles of metal to get them all turned into little antennas and then broadcast to them.
That's one possibility. But if you can control the environment they live in, you can control them.
Yep.
What GEOINT is, it's a complete, all-encompassing command and control system. This program or technology has found a way to circumvent humanity's resistance to RFID or microchipping the global population. Remember the uproar about that?
Oh, yes.
You know, mark of the beast, and don't take it, and don't take it. You won't be able to trade or anything. If you don't have this chip, you won't, the world as you know it will end if you don't take this chip. Well, this particular geospatial intelligence technology surpasses RFID, as RFID is a transmitter receiver, and it can be disabled or removed. When people are used as physical geolocated nodes on a network in a human terrain system, how do you remove that? Okay, nodes, let me try and explain it this way, John. Nodes can be removed on a network. For example, I'm sitting here in my office and my printer over there is a node on my network. Now I can go over and I can unplug that Ethernet cable. Now my computer system, if I look at my network map, that printer doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. I can't communicate with it. It can't communicate with me. I can't maintenance it. Nothing. It's not there. But I'm looking at it. It's sitting right there on my desk, but it's not recognized by the network. So if human beings are going to be used as nodes on this geospatial intelligence network, they can be removed just as easily with no impact on the network whatsoever.
Removed how?
Disconnect them. Erase everything about their data and eliminate the connectivity they have to the global information grid. I mean, look at what they're trying to do now. I mean, there's legislation before Congress to eliminate cash. Okay, everything has to be transacted electronically. So you remove that capability by removing the human node, or I should say you remove the human node by removing that capability, communications capability, earnings capability, everything.
They
People,
simply cease to exist.
as far as the network is concerned, yes. Yes.
I mean, it's like Stalin on steroids, where they would go into a family home and they would destroy the pictures, go down to the courthouse there, get rid of the school records, the photographs, the birth certificates, all of that, the driver's licenses, all gone. It's as though they have been erased from existence.
Exactly.
Only this is even better.
Or worse.
Well, I mean, more effective. That's what I mean by better.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me qualify that, please.
No. People, I mean, their plan, the big plan on this thing is that people will be reduced to the sum total of the data that's been collected on them. So how do you remove who you are? How do you what is who you are? It's the people you know, your family and personal relationships, financial profile, educational background, political, religious, personal interests and associations, travel and transportation habits, and the list goes on. It's everything about your activity. All the information, activity-based information, okay? They've been constructing this neural net for a number of years, and it's being supported and distributed by multinational intelligence collaboration, domestic interagency intelligence collaboration. This is your police, sheriff's department, emergency responders, all that, by the proponents of global governance, one world order, one world government. John, all of this information I'm presenting I've gone through several hundred pieces of paper in documents, reports, system concepts, system development, software capabilities, the whole 9 yards. This is what they're telling each other this stuff does. Okay? I'm just relaying this. Mm-hmm. And the GON system or network, and this is a common, the phrase mastering the human domain also appears hundreds of times throughout these papers for GON. The domain is, from the GON standpoint and from the Jade 2 standpoint, it works based off three concepts, okay? Human dynamics, human terrain, and human geography, okay? They're digitizing all of this data on this information. Domestic threat centers, what are they called? Threat assessment centers?
Yeah.
That have popped up in every state in the country now, and some states have multiple threat assessment centers in them. They're not just here in the U.S., they're global, and they're an integral part of this program from a data collection standpoint. Okay? They will be exploiting the human dynamics of the people of a region or nation-centric population area, which would be your large cities or your large cultural regions, that type of thing. They're going to do this through the use of ABI, which I briefly mentioned before. And what ABI is, it's activity-based intelligence, gathered from where? From open source data. What's open source data? Places like Facebook, LinkedIn, the internet, cloud computing, cloud storage, social networking platforms, cell phones, and the list goes on. Okay? ABI is defined as all aspects of human activity. It's the presence of activities, transactions, both physical and virtual, okay? Cultural, structural organizations, networks, and their interrelationships with each other, motivation, intent, vulnerabilities and capabilities of humans as single individuals or as groups or in the context of large population-centric areas across all domains of the operational environment, air, land, sea, space, and cyberspace. Okay? All collected data, now get this, all collected data is to be geolocated to a specific spot on the Earth and then tied to a human node on the network. Remember you asked before, well, how do they unplug you from the network?
Yeah.
That's how. Okay, this process in the realm of GeoIN is known as georeferencing. Okay, the philosophy module in this beast, okay, which is an extension of the AI Foundation, is using two rather ominous or juxtaposition concepts that I really don't understand, but I'm going to throw them out there anyway and try and explain them in case somebody in your audience understands this better and can correct me on this. Those two concepts are data neutrality and sequence neutrality. Okay? Data neutrality means that all data is equally viable in the analytic process of ABI, activity-based intelligence. Let me see if I can explain that. Okay. It's like you have three people and you tell them, you put them up against a house, a building, okay? But they can only stand 1 inch from that building. And one person is an inch from a glass window, another person is an inch from the brick wall, another person's an inch from the molding around the front door, okay? Now, what this says to me, this data neutrality, all data is equally viable, each of those three people are going to describe in their own conceptual context what they're seeing. None of it is correct, okay, in as far as each of them are actually looking at a building, okay, but each person's description is equally valid in as to what they're describing to you. Okay, now sequence neutrality states that not only is all data viable, as we pointed out with the example of the three people looking at the house or the building from 1 inch away, but no matter how the data is sequenced, okay, it has equal value. And let me try and explain this. For example, take these two sentences. Will you do it, which is an action string or an action sequence of words. Will you do it? And do you will it, which is an intent. Those words are sequenced in a way that it is projecting intent.
Yes.
Now, in this concept that this system is using, both of these data sets have equal value, even though the original phrase was, or may have been, it will do you. Okay? Do you see how I don't know, I see potential just for great logic problems with this.
Yeah, I do too. Because you're saying sequence neutrality, meaning all of the sequences have equal value. Is that correct?
Right, no matter how the data is arranged in it. So we just use an example using words as data in a string or a sequence. All three of those 4 or 5 word sentences, okay, have different values in the meanings and even different actions in the value of those meanings, one being an action and one being an intent. You see what I mean? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Trying very feebly to communicate here.
No, we're getting it. It's a huge concept. Just keep rolling. You're doing great.
Okay. And then they go on to further explain that this is how the system is able to generate answers to questions that haven't been asked.
Oh, my God. I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, my God. Yeah. They said this. This is right in the papers. I mean, I would say that this is actually generating answers to questions that never existed in the first place. If you take it one step further down the road.
Yes.
You know. So I don't know. I think I think some of these concepts, at least the way I read them and understood them, are very ominous. I mean, this thing, I can see this thing going sideways.
It's like
no
a
problem.
god. It's like an artificial god mind or something.
Oh my God! You just hit on something that I wasn't going to talk about till the end.
This is where. Okay, we can save it for
Okay.
the end if you want to.
But the ABI, or the activity-based intelligence system, which is the driving force behind the artificial intelligence architecture, breaks the human domain down into four main categories. And this, again, John, goes back to bulk data collection. Okay, those four categories are the biographical data. That's who you are. Individual activity data, which is what you do. Relational data, which is who you know. Family members, personal relationships, organization memberships, religious affiliations, all that kind of stuff. The last and most important, and this one is key, contextual data. Information about the environment in which the entity, or you, or me, the human network node, is found. Excuse me. That would be demographics, political environment, cultural norms, social interactions, tribal customs. It's the glue in the ABI's ability to map the human domain. That's what that contextual data set is. Okay. Do you remember the Obama phone scandal?
Yes.
That big fat lady, I got my Obama phone. Obama gave me a phone. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She later went, well, that ain't happening.
Yeah, she later was not very happy with him. I guess she didn't get her car or her house or whatever. But anyway, this was a means, okay, to put the required technology into the hands of people who couldn't afford it so that they, too, could be tracked on this global information grid. It doesn't stop there, though. Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, okay, just announced that they're both on a quest to bring the internet, and Zuckerberg with his Facebook and wireless cell phone technology to the people of third world nations. Now, what do you think an African tribe is going to do out there sitting using Facebook? But that's their goal. I mean, they've stated they want to do this. This is a quest.
Well, I hope both of those
on this
idiots
mission.
go to sub-Saharan Africa and run into some cannibals and wind up in the pot. That would be excellent. And somebody puts that on Facebook.
Yes, and they put it on Facebook. Okay, but, getting back, and none of this stuff, John, I have to tell you, actually clicked at the time I was hearing about this, and until recently, it all just started pulling together, okay? Do you think they're doing this out of compassion or out of the goodness of their heart? No, the plan is to data collect and track every person and every piece of data associated with them on the planet. Or if not everyone, as many of them as they can, and then screw everybody else, I guess. That's
Pretty much.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the presenters commented flat out, and this is on the GeoInt symposium. This particular symposium I'm referring to was 2 hours long. But he said, and quote, "If you're not collecting all data, you're not going to get a good human terrain," end quote. This is GeoInt.
If you're
Global
not
information.
collecting all the data, you're not
All
going
data.
to get a good human terrain print?
Human terrain.
Oh, just a
I
good
mean-
human terrain. Okay, gotcha.
Right,
I added
right.
a word. Sorry.
A human terrain map or topography or tool. Okay, you're not going to get it. It'll be flawed. And
We have to have all the data, or we might as well have none of the data.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
The system is able to decode coded information to find the signal in the noise. Now, this gets into a very interesting area as well. Translation, Data encryption is no longer an issue for them. There will be no aspect of privacy on this system. Okay, another portion of the GeoInt Symposium that I picked up on was the fact that there are emerging new professional fields coming out of this massive, massive technology. They're unrolling. I shouldn't say unrolling. It's already rolled out. I don't think it's all connected up yet. I don't think the proverbial switch has been flipped. But two of those interesting emerging fields were what they call human geographers and human cartographers. And these are just a couple of the new professions that have been identified and staffed already in these. I can't even call it organization, GeoNet, GeoInt. I think it goes way beyond that. But these positions have already been staffed, and their role is to develop a tapestry, so to speak, of all aspects of human behavior, human emotion, and reactions. Okay. A common tagline or a theme throughout the GeoInt Symposium, the 2-hour symposium, the papers that are available online and that's this, and I find this very troubling, okay, is that there are currently too many people involved at the geopolitical level, and what they're specifically referencing is government and military decision-making authorities to determine who is actually in charge. All right, this is a problem for them. So they intend to eliminate this uncertainty by placing an AI-based network-centric global system in charge.
Sounds like Skynet out of Terminator, doesn't it?
Yeah, or the Borg out of Star Trek or something.
Yes, or both.
A combination.
A combo, yeah.
The fact that the system can and will be used to kill people was also addressed in the symposium. And this was emphasized in a statement by one presenter stating, quote, "That's the price you pay for the advancement of this technology, and we're willing to make those sacrifices," end quote.
What exactly does that mean?
It means that they know that the system, in its testing phases this is what I think it means. They know that the system, due to its advanced technological capabilities that it can perform, is going to make occasional mistakes. I don't know, programming errors, whatever. And it's going to kill people accidentally. But, we're willing to pay that price until we get this right. That's what I think they're saying.
That's kind of what it sounded like, yeah.
Okay. This is just hairy. It can depict crisis resolution and pre-crisis action, just like the Jade 2 system in the Jade Helm 15 exercise can do. The segment that was presented by Doug Weinstein, remember him? He was the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense Intelligence. He stated that there is a growing need for more data collection to better define the human dimension or human terrain. Okay, the latest, I think, the latest mainstream media and political hype, that we're hearing regarding the NSA's spying's it's being removed from the Patriot Act. That's a smokescreen. I'm going to tell you that right now. Okay. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's an outright lie. The network architecture's already in place, and the data dumps are being done automatically now by this grid. Okay? Computer systems don't abide by legislation. They didn't spend billions of dollars on this technology only to pass a law demanding we shut it down NSA data collection's not going away. It's being taken over by the geospatial intelligence network and everything plugged into it.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Okay, GeoInt's main objective, and I know I've said this before, and at the risk of repeating myself, is to achieve centralized command and control over humanity. Every human will become a node and a sensor on the GOG from a network-centric standpoint, and from a material or a physical standpoint, they'll become a human inventory item in the system. The system's also been collecting biometric data on everyone. Okay, this is required so that every human sensor or node on the network will have its own unique bio API, or biological application program interface. And this is how they'll circumvent the RFID or microchipping that we talked about earlier. Okay, the system, it'll develop and execute directives based on its interpretation of political will. What's that? It will develop and execute directives, its own directives, based on its interpretation of political will. They're not referencing the political will of nation states. There won't be any. They're talking about the political will of one global centralized government.
You bet. That's exactly what this is.
Okay. As you know, and again, at the risk of sounding redundant, predictive software, or AI, is at the core of this GeoInt system, just like in the Jade 2 software system that I had done a report on a while ago. Same technology, bigger scope. Okay, the system's able to change natural outcomes of human activity by predicting human behavior and reacting to it before it occurs. Think about that for a minute. Predict human behavior and react to it before it occurs.
Good Lord.
Now, they're serious about this. They have 2 technologies on the books, and both of these technologies are significant, and they're interconnected to several other policies, executive orders, programs, military systems, this GeoInt system, in a couple of different ways. They're called edge and illicit. Okay, I can explain them to you, but they're kind of boring. They're key components for this prediction and reaction. And they're referenced not only in the Jade 2 final report, but also in the 1033 program, and they are also referenced in Executive Order 13684, which is 21st Century Policing of America and Intelligent-Led Policing 2. This is key technology. What EDGE is, or what it does, I'm going to try and condense down dozens and dozens of pages. It formulates that fine line in the human nodes on the network, okay? Those fine boundaries of the node that's you, that connects you to somebody else, to somebody else, to somebody else, to somebody else, okay? That's basically what the EDGE technology does. Now, illicit is a little different. It's a think tank collaboration. It is for information sharing and trust between law enforcement, community organizers, emergency responders, and things of that sort. You know, your domestic peacekeeping tools.
Yeah.
The illicit platform is the main theme in the 1033 program and in Executive Order 13684, which is Obama's vision for America, also known as 21st century policing. All right? This concept, this think tank-based initiative, is paramount to the Stasi in Nazi Germany, with an added dose of network-centric technology and military-grade equipment being thrown into the mix just for fun. And they're referenced in those orders and those policing programs.
Unbelievable.
There was an entire segment of this symposium that focused on the harvesting of all commercial data. What? So I had to read on that more and dig more into this. I mean, it started raising the question, I wonder why no one's been allowed to read the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement.
Yeah.
And then they tried to fast track it through Congress with nobody even reading it. I mean, since that didn't go as planned, they've now repackaged it and they're trying to fast track it through under the title of the TPA. I think these things tie in definitely. Okay. Well, we talked about, massive data collection ad nauseum in this report here, but they're not only collecting data using the methods we already know about in order to populate these huge data dump facilities like the one in Bluffdale. They're now also employing technology called dirt boxes. Have you heard of those?
Which boxes?
Dirt
boxes.
Dirt
boxes. I did see the term pop up, but I went past it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this technology is installed on private planes, and in a single sweep, they can pull information from tens of thousands of cell phones. Yeah. I'm not just talking about your phone number and where your phone is on the GPS coordinates. I'm talking about all the data stored on your phone, your mobile banking information, Facebook, social media networking files, passwords to secure applications, the applications on your phone, sites you may have stored on there, in addition to all the other stuff we know they're collecting on us. So now they've got this dirt box technology, and it's a piece of hardware that they're using private planes, flying over neighborhoods, up and down roads, mostly in populated areas, because the more concentrated the technology is in a particular area, the more they're going to scoop up on a sweep with these dirt boxes. And then that information is all going into the data dump as well. So mastering the human domain, okay, and this is, again, we're in the context of GEOINT now, okay, represents a shift in focus from nation states to individuals. GEOINT will put a clamp down on individuals, groups, or population-centric areas before an event, demonstration, or rebellion, just like you mentioned, can occur. Okay, the lines between the military and the government haven't just been blurred. They've been removed with this system. If there is still any doubt about this, I'd like to read this from the SOCOM RSOF 2022 report regarding command and control of the human domain. Okay?
Very good.
Quote, while the rise of non-state transitional actors will serve to complicate U.S. government actions throughout undergoverned nations, we cannot afford to discount the actions of state-sponsored actors who operate much like other violent extremist organizations, only with the state's direction and support. Countries where state-sponsored, non-state, and transnational actors actors operate typically have weak, corrupt central governments, high unemployment, high poverty levels, limited or failing infrastructure, deep ethnic and religious divisions, and a history of humanitarian issues. End quote. Sound like any place you know?
Sounds like the Middle East, and it sounds like ISIS.
Sounds like here, too.
Well, ISIS is here.
Yeah. Yeah. ISIS is everywhere and nowhere. They're everywhere.
As this black guy said yesterday, it ain't ISIS, it's USIS.
That's good.
Right.
Okay, so why are they even contemplating dropping this neural net on humanity? I pretty much think that is one of the main concepts behind Agenda 21 as well. I mean, what I think is happening, and they're getting ready to do this, is that one reason is that people are awakening at an accelerated pace.
Yes.
Right now. I mean, 7 years ago, if you would have told me, or 10 years ago, you could talk to 10 people and 3 of them, you could talk to them about these conspiracies. I won't even call them theories. You could talk about these conspiracies. 7 out of 10 of them will think you're an idiot. Well, now it's like 7 out of 10 of them will probably agree with you. That may be a high estimate, but I think you get my drift. Okay?
I do. Yeah, I think you're right.
The lies and deceit by way of misdirection they're having less and less impact on the general population, and they're aware of this. They know this. Their propaganda machines are breaking down. What was it? It was William Casey, retired director of the CIA. He stated, and I quote, but I'm paraphrasing here, is that we will know our operation, and I believe the operation he was referring to was Operation Mockingbird,
yes,
has succeeded when everything the people know is false. That came out of the mouth of the outgoing director of the CIA. Well, what did Nancy Pelosi say?
Which time?
Oh, yeah, right. Well, it's not against the law to lie.
Mm-hmm. Did she really say that?
Yes, she did. Now, they were asking her about something along those lines, about propaganda and not telling the American people the full truth. And it may have even had something to do with Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction. And, of course, she was out there beating the drums. Yeah, we got to go blow them up and before they blow us up. And, they asked her, well, wasn't that just a lie? I mean, if you had the information. And her response was, oh, well, it's not against the law to lie.
She is a monstrous excuse of a human being, in my opinion.
Oh.
Seriously, and I'll just state that for the record, Nancy.
Well, I totally agree.
It's disgusting. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway, the bottom line is they're losing the battle for our minds. People, slowly as it's taken to happen, they're starting to be able to connect the dots themselves, and they're starting to develop some modicum of being able to think for themselves and not have to be told by a TV set or a Barbie doll news anchor, what they're supposed to be thinking and feeling and buying and wearing and voting for and everything else. I think they're just starting to wake up. And this scares the bejesus out of these people. And for good reason. For good reason.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why I have visions of the French Revolution, payday, dancing through my head right now. I'm trying to ward them off, but it's tempting, just for momentary amusement. I mean, these people have caused countless deaths, untold misery, and they're just they're well paid for it. And like you just said, wow, I can't believe she said, well, it's not against the law to lie. Really? Okay. Actually, it is, just not your law.
Yeah, just not in your world. So anyway, John, up until recently, I was of the same opinions as many other people, and that was that the amount of data that they're collecting on everyone is just so vast. They'll never be able to find anything meaningful in these massive data dumps they're amassing. And just like the endless printing of money, endless data collection has a point of diminishing returns. And meta tagging or metadata, like we talked about before, okay, is only useful to a point before these indexing features start returning so much information for the algorithms to process that the system actually starts bogging itself down. Now, conventional data processing, as we know it, starts out as binary code, zeros and ones, and then data is processed sequentially or in a linear manner. Processed data can have a one-to-one or a one-to-many relationship in a database. Now, throw into that mix quantum computing.
Yes.
Quantum computing takes all the standard principles we know about computers, networking, and data processing and tosses that out the window. This technology is based on a whole new level of physics using principles of particle mechanics and quantum entanglement. Now, this involves a particle state. Quantum computing involves a particle state known as superposition. What is superposition?
Oh, I was hoping you'd ask and answer.
It enables particles to have a value of 1 and 0 at the same time. Now, I'm not a physicist, but I'm going to try and explain the best I can how this works and how this changes the whole landscape of computing as we know it, and in the context of these massive data dumps they're collecting. Okay, information is broken down into quantum bits or qubits. Okay, these superposition particles can pass through any conventional data barrier we have now. And because they exist or reside in two places or in two spaces simultaneously, they can unlock every digital vault in the world. Now here it gets even stranger. And that's another thing I found in reading a bunch of documentation on this quantum computing, the word spooky. You know how the word smart meter, we talked about before, smart car, smartphone, smart, all bad. Mm-hmm. It refers to one particular segment of technology. Well, in this realm, the word spooky, I saw pop up more than a dozen times. Spooky tech, spooky data, spooky computing, spooky. So when you hear that word, think quantum computing. This is what they're alluding to, okay? Now, the qubits, as I mentioned before, are arranged in blockchains, kind of like Bitcoin. And remember we talked earlier about the use of synthetic biology and synthetic bio-APIs?
Yes.
Well, what does DNA look like? It could be described as a double-twisted chain or a helix.
Indeed.
Indeed it can. And this level of computing technology will perform in seconds what would have taken conventional computers the equivalent of millions, not a million, millions of years.
No.
Yes. Okay. Listen to this. We're talking about processing power of 2 to the 512th power of operations being performed simultaneously.
How do you know these things, DJ?
I looked them up.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
That was an easy one. Okay, fine.
No, I started, I just kept going, drilling down. Okay, now when we're talking about this computing power of 2 to the 512th power of operations being performed simultaneously, the author of this particular paper that I was reading put it in, and I'm quoting what he said there, That's more calculations than atoms in the universe by orders of magnitude, end quote. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around that. I'm just like, whoa. And that's what the I'm having a brain lapse now. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's called the D-Mark. Hold on. D-Wave. That was the first generation of the D-Wave quantum box, the first quantum computer that was actually sold and is being used. It was 2 to the 512th power of operations. The power of these computers, that, remember how we were talking about, you can't possibly process all the information they're collecting and putting in these data dumps. It's just too much. You reach a point of diminishing returns, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The power of these computers increases exponentially with the number of qubits or data being pumped through them. Wow. It's like, John, if you can imagine, it's like trying to open a combination lock, but you have at your disposal all of the conceivable number sequences simultaneously, and you can hit that lock simultaneously with every conceivable number combination on that lock. Boom, it opens immediately.
Click, yeah.
All encryption available today is totally useless in the face of this technology, and the best guess estimated by cryptographers in the field working in quantum computing is that it will take at least 10 years to develop an encryption standard that will work in this realm. My question is, what happens during those 10 years? Well, I mean, let's look at some of who the tech giants are that are heavily involved in this.
Okay. Should we buy stock? I'm just kidding.
I mean, don't support them.
No.
IBM, Leidos Corp, ICG, Digital Reasoning, Google, BAE Systems, Microsoft, defense contractors across the board, and government intelligence agencies. These are the major companies and buyers and investors in this type of technology. As a matter of fact, Google just partnered with NASA in 2013 to purchase D-Wave 2. Now, remember how we talked about the 2 to the 512th power, processing power?
Yeah.
The D-Wave 2 processes at, I believe, 2 to the 1,152nd power.
Gotcha.
Okay? It's inconceivable, the amount of processing power these machines can perform. It makes my head hurt. Oh,
what I'm wondering is where did this information to develop this stuff come from? I mean, the first place that I'd reach is off planet. I mean, I can't imagine that just regular old human beings came up with this stuff.
I think it came from CERN, and I'll explain why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're already out there and in use. At least we know the D-Wave 2 is. Okay, Google and NASA bought it, and I bet you it's not sitting mothballed in a closet somewhere. They're using it. And we're not hearing about it because it's not making front page news, and the mainstream media is not even covering it. Okay, here's a quote from Singularity Hub. They're a publication out there that does a lot of this, atomic level physics and that type of thing. They had an article in there about this quantum computing, specifically on the D-Wave. And the writer, the author, wrote, quote, these, meaning these quantum computers, will change the balance of power in business and cyber warfare. They have profound national security implications because they are the technology equivalent to, you ready for this? A nuclear weapon.
Mm-hmm. Talk about asymmetrical warfare.
This just takes that to a whole new level.
Oh, yeah.
And now you had asked about, where did they get this technology from? Off planet? It may be coming from off planet.
So CERN opened a portal, and in walked a little purple guy and said, "You see this?" And everybody went, "Yeah, what is it?"
Watch what it can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But regarding CERN, every time they fire that thing up, okay, they're collecting more data regarding a realm of physics we know little about, a realm of physics that these quantum computers will be operating in. Scientists still don't even know or understand where these qubits go and retrieve answers to highly complex computations. One theory is that they can traverse dimensions of time and space. And another theory is that these quantum bits or qubits are traveling through different dimensions. I would tend to think, and this is just me thinking out loud here, that CERN has found a way to fold dimensions in on another and then tunnel through them. There is, last count, there's 26 that they have, quote unquote, identified. I don't know.
Is that all? Only 26?
26 dimensions. Now, if they've found a way to fold these things on top of each other, like the shortest point between, or the shortest distance between 4 points, like say on that connect dots on a piece of paper, you would think, oh, well, I have to draw a line to this one, then to this one, then to, oh, no, maybe to this one. No, that's not the shortest point. The shortest point is to fold that piece of paper 4 times in a way you can pierce it and connect
in a straight line.
4 of those dots simultaneously.
Yeah.
That's the shortest point.
That's pretty cool.
That's what I think CERN has either found out how to do or they're just on the verge. Okay, the CERN, among other things I could glean from that project there, is that they're working on one segment of it anyways. They're working on how to map or how to model consciousness. What is it? How does it operate? They're looking for technological answers to questions like what is the soul? Where does it go when our bodies die? And ultimately, how to master the answers to these questions that humanity's been asking since the beginning of time. And so as far as their stated, objective or goal, well, we're searching for the God particle. And that's the tagline that goes out about CERN. We're looking for the God particle, and that's what's being put out there for the masses to consume. And I don't think they're doing that at all. I think what they're looking for are the keys to unlock an advanced level of technology so they can become God or gods over humanity.
I think you are entirely correct. I really do. And that threat, here we go again, wasn't that threat already written in Scripture that that's precisely what the Dark One promised could happen to those who follow that dark, otherwise known as evil, entity? Mm-hmm. You will be as God. No big deal. Follow me. And they do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can it really, DJ, can it really be that simple? I think the answer is yes, it can.
Well, I mean, everything started falling into place pretty quickly, as I was reading these papers and flashbacks of things that had happened 4 or 5 years ago, that the government had said, the military had said, things they wanted to do, things they were trying to accomplish. It all just started clicking, and it started falling into place. This is how they're going to do it. They're not going to. People aren't going to go along with the microchipping. People aren't aren't going to go along with a lot of the proposals coming out of these psychopaths in government. So, how do we control so many people? You take complete command and control of the environment they exist in. It's rolled out. Now, like I mentioned before, I don't think all of the, let's call them components of the network, have all been plugged in, although they may have. I don't think they've flipped the switch yet. I think this Jade Helm 15 exercise, rolling out the Jade 2 software, is a system test. It's a test to see how well that system can react in controlling the people. Now, I could be completely wrong. I could be way off base, and it's nothing more than a military drill, but I don't think so.
Let me ask you this: what will the observable effects of a successful test be?
Well, I think one of the observable effects will be, all right, people are planning a demonstration like they did recently in Phoenix at the mosque down there.
Yeah.
Okay, they'll be monitoring all that. They will have police already set up before any of that information ever hits the airwaves or the news. They'll be waiting. I think that's one of the things you can look for.
Much like the biker deal in Waco.
Yeah. Were the police there ahead of time, or?
Oh, you bet they were. Too many two in the body, one in the head, the target is dead scenarios there, combined with corpses on the ground which do not bleed. It really is quite a confusing mess.
Wow. So those are some of the things you can look for. You can look for preemptive positioning for crowd control, that type of thing. Now, with respect to the Jade Helm exercise, the only thing I can recommend to your listeners out there is not from the realistic military training aspect of this exercise, but from the back end that we're talking about. Do not participate. Do not display an emotional response to it. This is exactly what they're counting on, okay? It appears that negative emotions, fear, anger, anxiety, are trigger points for this system to kick off an execution plan. Remember, emotional behavior, physical behavior, activity behavior outside of the norm identifies targets. Steady your emotions. And above all, no fear. Don't be afraid of this operation from either standpoint, the military standpoint or the system standpoint. When you're in a state of fear or you're in a state of anger, you do not make good decisions. And the system's predicated on that. With respect to GeoInt, okay, with respect to Jade Helm, the key is don't participate, don't display an emotional response. The sensors and the data collection, social network, they're going to be picking up on that data, and they're counting on it, okay? And like I said, it appears that the system responses are triggered by negative emotions. Now, with respect to GeoInt, okay, this is a much bigger issue. Okay, you would have to get off the technological grid to the best of your individual ability, and that is much easier said than done. What they've done was, we've been provided with all of this wonderful technology to make our lives more convenient and easier and more interconnected, and what they've turned around and done is they've turned that technology against us. So in order to stop this, which many people may be thinking, well, how do we avoid this? I think the answer is obvious. These huge data repositories, like the one in Bluffdale, Utah, the underground ones they have, the one in Maryland, okay, the threat fusion data collection centers, okay, these data storage facilities need to be unplugged, if you get my drift. Okay,
Yeah, I do.
the data storage media needs to be erased or rendered unusable because they've already collected so much data. It blows the mind. It really does. Data sweepers like the Gwen Towers and these dirt boxes and other data collection hardware needs to be disabled. We got to find some way to disable it, jam it. Because let me put it to you this way, all right? How can I say this? The car won't run if there's no gas in the tank.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the word you used is diabolical. And that's a very good description. Well, the drones are plugged into the Jade 2 system. Yeah. They directly communicate to the, you know, those little operators you see in wherever it is, Nevada or someplace, or Colorado, where they're operating. Nah. These drones now can be plugged directly into Jade 2.
Nice.
Take its orders from there.
Mm-hmm. So Jade Helm, somebody was recently on the program who said it's not kicking off on July 15th. It's already running now. Do you agree?
I think it's been running for quite some time.
Yeah.
You know, the back end of it, not the front end of it. Another interesting, I don't know if it was a Freudian slip or whatever, but when I was doing a report on mastering the human domain and the 1033 program and 21st century policing with that executive order 13684, I played a clip of this guy. Oh, what the heck is his name? I want to say Martin, but I don't think that's his name. He's the official PR person for this operation, and he was caught on tape. He didn't say it once. He said it twice. He said Jade Helm will be in full swing on July 15th, and it will be terminating on September 11th. And then he said again, we will be rolling up operations and terminating this exercise on September 11th. I don't think that was a mistake.
What does that mean to you?
You know, it's
just rubbing our noses in a little bit, or what do you think?
Maybe, could be.
I mean, was that your impression?
Well, I think the date September 11th holds significance, and if not in all Americans' minds, most Americans' minds. And I think it may have been a Freudian slip. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, but he said it twice. Usually if you make a mistake like that, you know, especially if you're a PR spokesperson, you know, you correct yourself. You don't say the same mistake again in the following sentence. Yep. But that gets back to two. Remember when we were going over a lot of one word that kept popping up in not only the GON symposium videos and papers, but in the Jade Helm papers, and then in that SOCOM RSOF 2022 paper was the word actor. That struck me as odd.
Yeah.
Actor? I mean, what are you talking about? Are these provocateurs? Are these, you know, geopolitical pawns? Actor. What a strange word to use in military documents.
Indeed.
So.
Actors,
I think,
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that I think a lot of these people out there, and even, especially people that have been on your show, that are coming out and they're talking about, you know, all of this stuff with Sandy Hook and the Colorado shooting, and there's so many of them, I can't even think of them offhand. You know, those were actors, the Boston bombing.
You
They were
bet.
all actors. And people have been, to their credit, in a very logical way, pointing this out to the general public. Look at this guy. He's the same guy that was in that news clip and that news clip. This guy's daughter just got blown away in elementary school, and he can't stop laughing. And they're doing a good job, pointing this stuff out. But my question is that these documents were made, some of them, and some of the reports that come out prior to those incidents. So I just found it to be a very strange word to be popping up all throughout, military reports and reports having to do with this neural net. I don't know. I can't make the connection right now. They don't even look at us as human. And that's okay, because I don't look at them as human either. I mean, humans have empathy. They love. I mean, they have compassion. They feel remorse. These people that seem to be running the planet have none of those qualities. Feelings mutual.
Yeah.
And that just reminds me, every time I hear one of these idiots, especially Obama, get up and announce another one of these executive orders, this is it, I almost expect I should be hearing a large billowing voice in the background saying, I am the Lord thy government, and there shall be no other gods before me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like that, God. I mean, you people you don't abide by the same laws you expect us to abide by. You're not prosecuted for crimes against humanity, but, the guy down the street robs a loaf of bread and they SWAT team his house. What is this? I think the main thing is in all this insanity is to stay calm, find a spiritual center, and focus on that. Be kind to people. Smile at people, make eye contact when you go out during the day, and just smile at them. And, chances are they'll smile back. Just generate as much of the good emotions as you can, because, as I mentioned before, these systems, I believe, are being triggered by negative emotion. Just generate as much positive as you're individually capable of.
That's a beautiful thing. So that what there may be of the divine in everyone can recognize the divine in all others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we are all divine. We are all special. We're not cattle. We're not, herd animals, which is what they're trying to reduce us to.
Yes.
And we're not. We're spiritual beings. We're conscious. There's a collective consciousness, I believe, that, can be tapped into. And I'm not talking about this geoint. That's artificial. I believe that there is a real one out there that we're all a part of. We all came from it, and we're all going to return to it.